Thanks for joining me on Life in Surround. This morning it's time to talk about Foxtrot by Genesis. This is part of my series where I'm going through the Genesis albums that matter to me the most, and I'm comparing the LP, if I have it. If it matters to me, I probably do, with the stereo SACD and 5.1 SACD layers available in this European green box set for the early years. And then there was a blue set and a red set for later years. And then there's even a live set and a video set. But in any case, Foxtrot comes from this green set. In Europe, it was released as SACD DVD combos. And in the United States, the SACD was replaced with an ordinary Redbook CD. Okay, so the only way to hear Foxtrot officially, losslessly, in 5.1 is to track down a copy of the SACD. You don't have to get the green box. Each of the Genesis titles did receive individual releases, like through Japan and elsewise. So there are options. Now, I've been listening to the DVD version of 5.1 for each of these comparisons, and I can tell you once again that you're going to be fairly satisfied with the DTS 5.1 on the DVD video. So whether you have the European set or the US set, and let's say that you don't have an SACD player, the DTS 5.1 is pretty good. The SACD edges it out for sound quality, as it should. But the DTS is a nice representation of the work. Okay? So when I can, I have been tracking down the SACD for the albums I most cherish. But if the DTS is what you got, go for it. Now, that said, the Dolby Digital I found to be just too indistinct, and I noticed it being like a less enjoyable listening experience. Alright, so Foxtrot. Such a cool album. I happen to have a fairly early repress, but it already lost the gatefold, and mine doesn't have a matched inner sleeve either, so it really is just this sleeve and then the record. I'm glad to have this on vinyl, but I think that it's missing some of its charm, given that I don't have an early enough issue, or maybe they've reissued it with a nice gatefold and with like all the artwork intact. So I'm going to try to find me a better copy of the vinyl. This version plays really well, and so I was able to get a sense for the original mix. I think that's important because the Genesis Surround series has garnered some skeptical reviews from some listeners, such as those who claim that Steve Hackett's guitar work has been mixed down in multi-channel, and those who feel that the mastering is way too hot. So I can tell you, LP sounds great. It's that classic mix, it's that classic sound. And this is our reference for the balance of how everything ought to be. In my opinion, the 5.1 mix achieves this balance. It sounds like the album to me. I don't find myself missing any of Hackett's parts, so we're all good there. The mastering seems to be fairly sympathetic, but during more bombastic passages, it got overpowering to me with my standard settings. And so we get to an important point about the 5.1 mix. I think part of the problem with the mastering is that compression was favored to the fronts and not so much to the rears. And not just compression, but the overall just volume settings. The fronts are favored. So what I did was I lowered the volume of my system and raised the surrounds, which is really quick and easy for me to do on the fly with my controller. So this brought this mix up to what I consider to be an acceptable, workable balance. And At that point, I brought the system up to my preferred listening volume, so it was rocking, wasn't straining my ears, made it all the way through the album, enjoyed the surround mix, mastering included. So that would be my hot tip. Just lower things down, bring the surrounds up, and you're probably going to be a pretty happy camper. All right, so Foxtrot, what is there really to say? It's very early Genesis. This is Peter Gabriel led. It's their 4th record, but it really is their 3rd official one. So you have Trespass, Nursery Crime, and now Foxtrot. Traditional fans of this album are pretty much going to love it all the way through, and I more or less do. I've always just had kind of a problem with Watcher of the Skies. It has this impulse during the verse, particularly the vocal melody and just the rhythm that it sets. It never allows me really to sink my teeth into it, though other passages of that song are just tremendous, like the long synth build at the beginning, and then just, lots of its musical interludes, and it kind of foreshadows some of the music to come on the rest of the album. I just really don't dig the verse motif. So that's my one knock against this record. And then some live versions of Watcher of the Skies tend to grab me a little better. I just really don't love how it was laid down here on the record. It's a noble attempt though. And then the record really picks up for me though. Can Utility and the Coastliners caught my ear the first time I put this album on and made me hit the back button. It was on CD in my car. Hit the back button over and over again. I was really enchanted with that track, and it hasn't lost its charm for me. It still is an amazing listen. It just sounds so majestic and almost otherworldly. At least it sounds sort of ancient, and like it was a hymn from the days of King Arthur or something like that. And then, of course, you get the acoustic interlude into Supper's Ready. And so, this album certainly finishes super strong. Supper's Ready is on most people's list of definitive prog rock tracks. It deserves to be there. It has just this ambition that is rarely paralleled, and a uniquely quirky set of decisions regarding which bits and pieces to throw into this opus and where. And it ranges from silly to absolutely apocalyptic. Dynamics range from pastoral, layered 12-string passages to the band going all out with bass, synth pedals, synthesizer, keyboards, guitars, drums, vocals at, full passionate tilt. So Supper's Ready really has it all. If you are wondering whether you like progressive rock, check out Supper's Ready, and I think you'll have your answer. It is a very, very, very fine example of the genre, and it is considered by many to be one of the crown jewels. Okay, so Foxtrot, whether on LP, cassette, CD, DVD, video, Super Audio CD, however it is that you have a chance to enjoy this album, I recommend you do so. Let me know if you love Watcher of the Skies, way more than I do, and your thoughts on the album in general. And again, 5.1, you can't go wrong with the DVD or the SACD, so track it down however you can if you don't have this in your collection yet. And who knows, maybe someday Genesis will embark on another series of their albums, hopefully at least the classic ones, and we might get updated Atmos mixes. And if so, hopefully everything will be mastered wonderfully and in balance. So we shall see what the future will bring. But for now, we have this wonderful, wonderful record available to enjoy, stereo and otherwise. It is certainly amongst my cherished records. I don't necessarily listen to this as much as some other Genesis albums. I don't necessarily listen to this as much as some other classic Genesis albums, but it will always hold a dear place in my heart. This was my gateway into Peter Gabriel Genesis, and from there I went on to just devour everything else. from the early catalog, so it did its job. All right, this has been a comparison of Foxtrot LP with the SACD DVD. I wish you happy listening, however you happen to come to this marvelous recording. And until next time, I enjoin you once again to live life in stereo or surround.